This meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, well, welcome. My name is Jess Coswell. I am going to be facilitating the CMS Manager Approver session this morning. And I want to welcome everybody. Some of you I know are using the system already. Some of you may be new to the system, but we've been using our self-service aspects of it for about 6 years now. And you're joining about 60,000 state employees who use the system to enter time and approve time. So over the course of the next hour, we're going to go through a number of things. The first is just a general overview of how the self-service functionality works. We'll talk about some navigation and how you're going to get into the system. We'll walk through the Time and Labor WorkCenter, which is where, as a manager approver, you're going to spend the majority of your time. The Time and Labor WorkCenter is where you're going to go to enter time for an employee and also approve time. So we'll walk through both of those scenarios. And then finally, we'll go through an overview of delegation, because the system allows you to delegate your time approval responsibilities to someone else in your organization. Let's talk a little bit about an overview. So the Commonwealth, you guys are coming on to the Commonwealth system, and it is things are a little different than the system you currently use. The pay period runs from Sunday to Saturday, and the Commonwealth pays biweekly. So the first paycheck that you guys will get from the system will actually be issued on July 28th, and that is for the pay period starting July 9th and ending on July 22nd. So there are a number of different roles in the system. We just wanted to spend a minute talking through what the difference is between a timekeeper versus an approver. So a timekeeper at the MBTA is most commonly either a train starter or a desk inspector. And as part of their job responsibilities, they are required to report time for employees. So they may enter time in the system. So they have their own unique login to the system, and it starts with MBT. And it's very important. These are specific to that person, and we do tell folks that you should treat your login to HRCMS kind of as you would treat something like your banking passwords, right? You wouldn't want to share those. So that is, all timekeepers have their own access to the system. Timekeepers can only enter time. They cannot approve time. Now, you guys as approvers, you have some great functionality within the system. You can do everything that a timekeeper can do and then some. So you can enter time for an employee, you can edit time for an employee, and you can also approve time for an employee. And you can do it all from the same screen. And what's really nice is if you are out due to an absence, you can delegate your time approval authority to someone else. And how you're going to log into the system is using your employee ID. So that's really nice because the employee ID allows you to enter time or to enter your own time or approve time from anywhere pretty much with an internet connection, including a mobile device. So let's talk a little bit about the payroll process. So this is the payroll process for the T. And how everything works is you're going to have your timekeeper or your desk inspector or train starter. They're capturing the attendance however they're capturing it today. So I know there are pockets of the T where some folks, might sign in on a paper timesheet. Some people might use a hand scanner. So however they're capturing their attendance, they're doing that. And then it'll go, the timekeeper will actually enter it into HRCMS, into the system. They'll be able to enter, if people had delay time, if they worked overtime, if they took a vacation day, the timekeeper will be able to enter that. Once that time has been entered, it then gets routed to the time approver, and that's you guys. And time approval is very critical. It's a very, very critical part of the process because you as time approvers, essentially you stand between the employee and a paycheck. So what happens is you will go into the system, approve the time. There's some system processes. We call them time administration. And time administration runs behind the scenes, and what it does is it turns all of that approved time into a paycheck. It also applies any rules. So if you had overtime on a timesheet, if you had shift differential, if you had some folks who were working, as I call them 6 for 8, they work 6 hours, but they get paid for 8. The system is going to calculate all those things and put it on the paycheck for the employee. So time administration runs just about every day, and it runs at 7:30, 10:30, 1, and 4 p.m. So what that does is it scoops up any approved time, and it's going to process it into a paycheck. So there are deadlines in the system, so we'll talk about those two separate deadlines right now. So the system deadline for time entry for Timekeeper is at Thursday at 5, and that's generally for your kind of Monday 9 to 5 regularly scheduled employees. It is kind of I call it a soft deadline. The system won't shut down. You can continue to enter time after Thursday at 5 p.m. It's just a system-generated deadline. And what it will do is if time is not entered by Thursday at 5 p.m., it will send an email to the employee saying, hey, no time has been entered for you for this time period. However, since most of you guys, I think, work in transportation, you enter time daily. So you wouldn't have to worry about missing, that deadline can come and go, and it really, doesn't have an effect. For time approvers, your approval deadline is Friday at 1 p.m. And that's for kind of your Sunday through Thursday time, right? If time is not approved by 1 p.m. on Friday, then you're going to get an email that shows you anyone who has unapproved time out there or any direct reports who didn't have time entered for them for the week. So then on Sunday at 1 p.m., the system will send a second email to approvers, and what the Sunday email is going to capture really any Friday and Saturday time, because I know with the T you have operations running just about 24/7, so you're going to have a lot of time entry on Fridays and on Saturdays. And then we say the deadline for time approval is Sunday at 6 p.m., and that's for any of the Friday, Saturday, time that was worked. You can also, if maybe you don't work on the weekends, you can approve time on Monday morning. We just tell folks that pretty much approve that Friday, Saturday time as early as you possibly can on Monday morning. That way that time administration can run behind the scenes, and it gives payroll some time to make sure that their payroll is accurate. Okay, I'm going to unmute your phones for just a second, and you can go ahead if you have any live questions.
All guests have been unmuted.
Okay. All right, your phones are unmuted if you want to go ahead and ask a question.
Kind of gig work for. Someone put HOL 8 hours. HOL.
Oh, I'm sorry, if somebody is asking a question, it's kind of hard to hear you. Could you move closer to the phone, or?
Okay, so did you go in for a shift on the 4th, like the night shift on the 4th?
All right, I'm having a hard time hearing. So if you wouldn't mind just typing the question in the chat, and then we can go ahead and address it.
And then put 8 hours in there. Your holiday week, and then 8 hours.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute your phones.
All guests have been muted.
So I'm not sure if there was a question there. It sounded like it had something to do with holiday time. So if you do have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat. I was having a hard time with a lot of background noise hearing you guys. Okay, so we'll go forward from here. So now we're going to switch gears. I talked a little bit already about how the system works, kind of in a theoretical level. Now we're going to take a look at what it actually looks like. So the best place to start, I tell folks, especially manager approvers, is mass.gov/masshr. And this site is accessible from pretty much anywhere with an internet connection, including your mobile device. So if you wanted to approve time on your phone, you can do so. You would just go right to this website, and you click on this blue box. Let me turn my cursor on here. So you click on that blue box in the middle, Employee Self-Service, and it's going to take you to the login page. Now, there was a large packet of information that was sent out a couple of weeks ago with instructions on how to log in and what the default password is. So you should consult that for logging in for the first time. But I think for the majority of you, you use the system. Your password won't change kind of going forward from July 9th. So what you might see that's a little different than what you see now is you might see two tabs at the top of the page. So when you log in, this is kind of the home page, and it defaults to My Page. And My Page is where you're going to go to do things for yourself. You might use this now already. It's where your timesheet is. It's where you go to look for your paycheck, where you go to manage your direct deposit. As an approver, you also have the My Team page, which is going to have information about your team. So underneath the My Page, you have your quick links, your one click to your timesheet, your direct deposit, view your paycheck. Whoops, I think I skipped one. Okay. On the My Team tab here, right, that second team, that's available for you guys as managers and approvers only. So that's some added functionality that you guys have. So we'll just take a quick walk through about what this tab has on it. So you have some alerts on here. So the first alert that you'll see, usually the most common one, is any pending delegations that you have. And you'll also see employees' years of service on here. So if you have someone who's nearing, you can see here, Sally Brown is 15 years of service today, you might see something here about that. You choose to do that, or do with it what you want. Directly underneath that are your manager links. These are your quick links for managers. This is where you're going to spend the most of the time when you're in the system managing your employees' time. And the very first one we're going to talk about in length in just a few minutes, that's the Time and Labor WorkCenter. The Time and Labor WorkCenter is where you're going to go to view your employees' time, manage their time, and approve their time. There's also some other information on here as well. Profile management, where you can go to get certain information about your employees. Manage delegation, where you can go to create a delegation. We'll talk about delegations at the end. And you can also view your direct reports, emergency contacts. Hopefully you'll never need to, but you can view them through this. So on the other side of the page, you have some direct line reports, and this is kind of small here. It's kind of tough to see. But what it does is they're nice little management reports for you, and it gives you some aggregate information about your employees. So you can see we have summary here, which just gives you a list of employees, where they are in their salary range. There's some more detailed reports that shows their job details, their contact information, their compensation, and also the time. And the time tab is great because what it's going to show you is it's going to show all of your employees' time. So if they have sick, vacation, personal, you'll see it kind of in aggregate right on that tab. So I want to spend some time talking about the Time and Labor WorkCenter and time approval. So remember, when you log in, you're going to go to the My Team tab, and under your manager links, you're going to click on the Time and Labor WorkCenter. So the Time and Labor WorkCenter defaults to this kind of grid-looking thing, and when you log in, some pieces of information are going to default in for you. We'll see that in the next screen. But it defaults to something called pending reported time. So let's talk about what that means. Pending reported time, you can see it's right here, is going to bring up your employees who already have time entered in the system. So when you log in, you click on Time and Labor WorkCenter. You'll notice two pieces of information will default in on your search grid. You're going to have a time reporter group, and you're also going to have a department down here. So for you guys, everyone's department is going to be MBT 1000. And you'll also see your time reporter group, which is unique to you. And that is going to be system generated, so you will see that when you log in for the first time on Monday. So if you come to this page, you always want to click on the Get Employees. Think of the Get Employees like your Enter key. And then what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the employees who have entered time down here. So let's take a minute and just look at what this is. So you can see down the bottom of my screen, we have two employees here. You'll see their last name, their first name, their employee ID, or their badge number. You guys call it badge number. You'll see the employee record number and shift if they have one. You'll see the week end date, time has been reported for, and also the outstanding hours that need to be approved. So in this instance, you can see that there are 2 employees who have 37.5 hours that need to be approved. So this is one way to go in and approve time. There is something else that I like to show folks as well, another dashboard that you can use called Timesheet. And it really depends upon the manager. Some people like to use the pending reported time. Other folks like to use the timesheet view. So with the timesheet tab, and to get to that, you would click right on that timesheet up at the top, and then click Employees again. And it's going to bring up a list of all of your direct reports. So you would see a list of all of your direct reports regardless of whether they had entered time or not, or someone had entered time for them. So it looks very similar, you'll notice, to what we saw before. You'll see their last name, first name, employee ID, employee record number, their scheduled hours, how many hours they are scheduled to work during the course of the week, the reported hours, how many hours that was put on their timesheet, and the hours to be approved. So you can see here that this first employee has 37.5 hours that are outstanding, and the second has 0 because perhaps the approver has already gone in and approved that time. So this tells us just some information about it. In order to actually look at the employee's timesheet, you want to click in on their last name, and it's going to bring up the timesheet for you. Okay, I'm going to unmute your phones again.
All guests have been unmuted.
Do we have any questions on the phone?
I do one at a time. Is that the terminal address? No, pay number 3.
Okay, hearing none.
All guests have been muted.
Okay, if you guys do have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat, and I will also unmute the phones in a few minutes. So here is a punch timesheet. This is what your folks for row 3 will be using. And when you log in, this is for an employee who has reported time, this is what it's going to look like. So what we're doing in this scenario is we're just going to walk through the timesheet, and then we're going to approve the employee's time. So at the top of the timesheet, I'm just going to do a quick overview. You'll see the employee's name and their job title. Underneath, you'll see some view by information. So you can view by week, you can view by day, or you can view by time period. So you would just toggle here using the little drop down here and to switch your view. So I know some folks like to do it by day. You could do it by day if you'd like. You'd see their scheduled hours. So everyone will have a schedule in the system as long as, whatever they picked, whatever work they picked, they'll have that schedule kind of hard-coded behind the scenes. And then the reported hours is the number of hours that they put on their timesheet. So for this is pretty much as vanilla as it's going to get. We have an employee who's scheduled 37.5 hours for the week and has reported 37.5 hours. So then underneath we see the timesheet here. You notice it is from Sunday through Saturday, and it will have a date on here. And the reported status, you'll notice it says needs approval. And what that means is waiting for you, the time approver, to go ahead and approve the time. So the time has been entered, and it's now waiting for the time approver to go in and approve it. So if the employee goes in, they worked their schedule every day, and everything looks great, you can go ahead and approve. I'll show you how to do that. There are really 2 different ways. The most efficient way, if everything looks great, is to click on the Select All button down here. What the Select All button will do is check all those boxes off for you, and you can just go ahead and click Approve. If something doesn't look right or you need to make a change, you can go ahead. What I usually tell folks to do is go ahead and approve the time that looks correct. So if 3 out of the 4 days look correct, approve those days, and either work with the timekeeper and the employee, or you yourself can go ahead and make the change right on the timesheet, resubmit it, and approve it right here. Okay, so you click Approve. It's going to come up with this little box. It's going to say, are you sure you want to approve the time selected? Once approved, it cannot be reverted back. That is true. Use no unapproved button in the system. However, you can always go back and make a change. If you did approve something in error, which does happen, you can go back, change the timesheet, resubmit it, and then reapprove. Okay. So once it's approved, it'll bring you back to the employee's timesheet, and you'll notice that the reported status has changed from needs approval to approved. And that approved status is as good as gold, right? You need that time to be approved in order for it to move ahead in the payroll cycle. So what happens now is that time will be kind of scooped up by the time administration process, rules will be applied, and then a paycheck will be created for the employee. So once you've approved kind of one employee, there's also a next employee link right here for you, so you don't have to back out, enter a badge number or anything. You could just click on next employee. That will take you to the next employee's time card. You can review it, make changes, and approve it from there. Okay, I'm going to unmute your phones.
All guests have been unmuted.
Any questions on time approval?
Yeah, Tamika has a question. Couple of things. Can you approve more than one person? So if an area has, 600 employees and we want to approve a group of like 50 at a time, is it possible to do that, or is it one at a time?
So it is one at a time. We always tell folks, you should look at the individual time cards before you approve them.
And also, is there a way to run a report to see if something wasn't entered before you get that lovely email?
So there are all kinds of, let me scroll back for you. There's a couple of different dashboards that you can use. The timesheet dashboard does a nice view of this, so you could see the scheduled hours and the reported hours. So this would bring up a list of all your employees, and you could see very quickly whether someone was, short their schedule or, had no hours that was entered for them.
All right, and then you also stated that anyone who picks work, there'll be hours generated for. What do you do for someone who's like on the list who guarantee 8 hours but doesn't necessarily have pick schedule? We're going to have to input that, or is it going to generate just 8 hours on for them?
So I believe they'll have to generate, the inspector will have to generate the card for that person.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. Any other questions out there?
This is Deanna from Quincy. I do have a question.
Yeah.
So every day we have to hit every employee's card to check and approve to make sure that it's correct?
So the system is, I don't know, what's your business process today? Do you do it daily today?
Well, we don't hit every card, just those who may bang in or get a miss or AWOL. Generally, if a person picks a piece of work and they come to work, we don't have to hit their card or anything.
Okay. So it really depends. I know the desk inspectors and the train starters are entering daily. So it's really, I think, a manager, up to you guys to decide, am I going to go in and am I going to approve daily? Or remember, the system deadline is weekly to go in and approve. But everybody's time needs to be approved in order for a paycheck to get created.
Okay.
Yep. Only time in an approved status will pay out.
Jessica, I have another question.
Sure. Yeah.
It's Margaret's question. If someone's on VR, then they have.
Doing well. How are you?
If you're not speaking, could you guys put your phones on mute? I'm getting a lot of background noise. I can hear some side conversations. Let's try that question again.
Okay, so the question is, if someone's on VR, sometimes they have picked work, and sometimes they do not. Do you know if a vacation relief person, we're going to have to enter their information each week, or only the days they have, like, list rating?
So I think, when somebody floats around, it does different pieces. I think you'd have to enter that daily, whatever they worked. So VR, is that vacation relief?
Yes, vacation relief.
Yeah. Yep. So say, you'd enter it, he came in and worked 7 to 3 on Monday, you'd enter that, you'd have to enter that manually, and then whatever, the schedule was, whatever he worked. That's a manual entry.
Let me go on to your timesheet, John.
So I guess my question I was asking is,
Your employee ID?
they actually pick someone else's work, so they might have a run for that week, so will that be automatically in the system?
Yes. No, that would not be. You'd still have to manually enter it. Yeah.
I have a question.
All right.
Sure.
So the reason why
So people on vacation,
the holiday
that
the holiday
I
is
understand
coming
what we
in.
have to do for the person who's actually doing their work, but if they're on vacation,
Hold on.
do we have to
So she works
erase
on
their
Sunday,
work
correct?
and put in vacation, or will it automatically go into the system that they're on vacation?
Okay. I'm sorry.
And then
There's somebody having a conversation about holiday time on the phone. If you guys could mute your phone, that would be great. Because I can't, two people talking at once, I'm worried I'm not quite getting it. Okay. Could you go ahead and ask your question again? I'm sorry
The
about
vacation.
that.
Okay, this is
Yep.
Lynn Anthony down at the Lynn Garage.
Okay. Hi, Lynn.
right.
Okay.
Hi. My question is on, I understand now what we have to do for somebody that's on VR. We have to manually enter the work that they're doing for the week. But the
Yep.
person who's actually on vacation for the week, do we have to delete their work and put in vacation, or is that automatically going to be in because it's in the system that they're
Yes.
on vacation?
I believe that you'll have to delete their work and put them in on vacation.
So you're saying you took
I
the
will-
holiday on Monday, correct?
I am so sorry. Does anyone know who that is? Talking? Who could maybe ask them to put their phone on mute?
Okay, so we will have to go in and
You-
delete
yes,
the work out
yes.
and manually put in
In-
that they're on vacation.
Yes, and manually put it in. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good question.
I know.
Anything else?
Which is why you put quantity.
Yeah, I guess this is Deanna again. I guess I can kind of piggyback off of that.
Sure.
How far in advance can you actually look ahead? Like, I know when we get our books, we'll have each week for vacation relief. So if we know, say, 6 weeks before that person goes on vacation and we just want to be proactive, can we go 6 weeks ahead and make that change, or do we have to wait for that week to come in before we can make the change?
You answered your own question. It's exactly 6 weeks. So you can report time 6 weeks out in advance.
Okay.
Yep.
What shows up right now
Okay,
is 32 hours.
Good question.
Thank you.
So I'm
Okay.
just trying to get this.
I'm gonna mute your phones because we're having some side conversations. But please, these are great questions. Feel free to type them in the chat as well.
On Monday.
All guests have been muted.
Okay, thank you guys. Excellent questions. Please feel free to type more in the chat, and I will unmute your phones in just a few minutes. And please, 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 if you are having a side conversation, put your phone on mute so that the rest of us can continue for the webinar. Okay, so what we've looked at so far is just a very generic, you go in, you approve the employee's time. As time approvers, you also have the ability to enter time for an employee if you need to, although I know that a lot of the desk inspectors and train starters will be doing that. I also know that you guys use a lot of different codes on your timesheet, so I wanted to include this key fields kind of cheat sheet. We've been giving this out to all the people who are coming to Timekeeper training. I think you guys have a copy of the presentation. This is in there as well. This is a really good kind of cheat sheet for time entry that shows all the different codes that the T uses. So if you needed to go in, say maybe your desk inspector was out for the week, or you needed to go in and enter time for an employee, the first person who touches the employee's time for the week is going to see a blank card. So the timesheet will be blank. But what you will see is this Apply Schedule button down here. So both you as the time approver and if your desk inspectors will see this as well, you'll see that Apply Schedule button. And what the Apply Schedule button will do is it will apply whatever the person's schedule is to the time card. And then we can go ahead and click that and see what it looks like. It's going to populate the time in for you, so whatever their normal schedule is will populate. And then you can go ahead and you can click Submit. So that's kind of just a very basic time entry. If somebody comes in and they work their schedule, whatever their schedule is for the week, they don't have any overtime, they don't bang out early, you apply the schedule and you submit. But we know that is kind of the best case scenario. There are plenty of time, and I think you guys have lots of great examples of how this works. There are times, people take vacation, people leave sick halfway through their shift. So we're going to walk through a couple of those scenarios right now. So for the first one is to reporting leave hours for an employee. So you guys asked some questions. How far in advance can I enter vacation time for an employee? So in this instance, you could say, like it's 6 weeks. You can report time 6 weeks out in advance. So in the scenario we're looking at, you can see on Tuesday, this person is going to take a vacation day. So in order to enter leave time, what you have to do is remove the hours from that day. And there are two different ways to do that. You can either just click in each cell and hit the backspace or the delete key, and that will delete the time out. And then what you're going to do is click on, let me just show you where that is. You're going to click on this little lookup. Anything with this little magnifying glass over here means you can look up, that there's data behind the scenes that you can look to pick. So we're going to pick a time reporter code, which is going to tell the system what we're going to use. So in this instance, we're using vacation time. So that's VAC. It's going to bring up a list, and each employee will have a list of time reporter codes that is specific to their bargaining unit. So you as managers may have different time reporting codes on your timesheet than your employees do, if they're entitled to different things like delay pay or certain codes. So just be aware of that. So, but this very basic scenario, we're doing vacation time. So you click on VAC. It's going to populate the TRC for you right there. You can see vacation leave. And then you can also see over here we've entered the quantity of hours at 7.5 because this employee is scheduled to work 7.5. That's just kind of a very basic scenario on how to enter leave for an employee. So anytime you make an adjustment to the timesheet, we always tell folks to click that submit button. And what the submit button will do is kind of route it and get it ready for time approval. Okay. So in the next scenario, what we're going to do is someone's going to, maybe they leave early during the day. They feel sick or they have a scheduled doctor's appointment or something. So you need to change their time. So when you look at the timesheet, you guys have probably noticed this on your timesheet when you need to add something. If you scroll all the way over, there are these little plus and minus buttons. And these plus and minus buttons, the plus is going to add a row, so it's going to add a row of time for folks. Or you can also use the delete button. If you need to delete a whole row of time out, you can do so using that delete button. So in this instance, and I apologize, it is very small on my screen, so hopefully you guys have a printout of the presentation. We can see on Thursday that this employee left at 2:45 p.m., so we changed the out punch just by overriding the 2, or changing the 4:45 to 2:45. And then on the second line here, what you see, they're going to use 2 hours of personal time, so they entered a personal time code, PER, and then put 2 hours because that's what they were using, and click submit. Okay. So that is kind of your some common scenarios. What's really nice, another common scenario for the T, I know you guys work a lot of overtime. What's nice about the system is that the system will calculate the overtime for you. So if you if someone's working overtime on a regularly scheduled day, what the system will do, you just put the in and out punches in, and the system will actually calculate the time for you, which is nice. So in this scenario, we can see on Monday that this person worked from 9 a.m. to 7:30, and you can see the punch total right here is 10 hours. So what the system will do behind the scenes is it's actually going to take those 2 hours and it will know to pay that at time and a half. But that's a very generic overtime example. And I know at the T, you guys use a lot of different codes to show that people have worked overtime. So usually when folks work overtime, you're going to use a combination code, which we call the function code. You might be in a different area, and you also need an overtime reason code. So those are some common codes that they use. So let's take a look. This is the more common one because you guys do a lot of tracking of overtime. So we'll take a look at this scenario. So for this employee, you can see they worked Monday from 9 a.m. until 5:30. Maybe they came back and then they needed to work overtime for a couple, so you can see they worked overtime for 1 hour. So in order to add that, what you would do is scroll all the way over, and remember those little plus and minus buttons I was talking about. You're going to hit a plus for that day. And what we usually tell folks is for the in punch, we have them copy and paste whatever the out punch was and add a fraction of a second. So if I don't know if you can read this, it's quite small on my screen, but it's 5:30:01 p.m. So it's a fraction of a second. There's not going to be any pay associated with that fraction of a second. But what this does is it tells the system that it's a different punch, right? Because we punched out at 5:30, we can't also then punch in at 5:30. You just have to adjust it very slightly there. And then you put the out punch of whatever it was, 6:30, 7:30, whatever. In this instance, it's 6:30. And then you have to put your codes in. So you have your combination codes over here, and your combination codes are your function codes. In HR CMS, they're called combination codes. You guys call them function codes. And then you would put in your user field 1. And user field 1, if someone was working in a different area, you would put in the area that they were working. If they were just working in their home area, you wouldn't need to change it. And then their user field 2 you would put in would be the overtime reason code. And the overtime reason code they all start with MBT. Okay, I'm going to unmute your phones again.
All guests have been unmuted.
Do we have any questions on the phone?
You have to log. You have to log out, yeah. I got a better idea.
Okay, I'm going to mute your phones again. There's a lot of background noise.
All guests have been muted.
If you do have questions, please type them in the chat. I'll see them right away, or I'll unmute it in just a few minutes. We're moving right along. So if you need to enter shift differential for folks, if you have people who work on a third shift and are entitled to shift differential, you can see here we have an employee who's working third shift. They work 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. You can actually enter shift in dollar amounts. So I think it's common right here. All you would do is add a row, and the code you would use, the TRC code, is actually SAM. It's an easy one to remember, for me at least. And then you'd put the dollar amount in. So for this particular employee, they're entitled to a $10 shift differential per day. You put that in. I think there's some folks for this rollout who are entitled to an $8 shift differential. Whatever the shift differential is today is what it's going to be in the new system. Okay. So there are two scenarios that we wanted to talk about regarding holiday pay. But the good news about holiday pay is you guys don't have a holiday until Labor Day. So there's quite a bit of time between now and when you do have a holiday. So you guys will be pros at using the system by the time the holiday comes around. So there's two different scenarios usually when it comes to holiday. Maybe the person has entitled to, they're taking the day off and they're entitled to holiday pay. So it's just another code, and the trick with this code is it's HLN. So in this scenario, the employee is not required to work the day, but they still get their 8 hours of holiday pay. So you can see here that they're entering HLN as the TRC and the 8 hours of quantity. Now, in previous rollouts, what they did was they had the help desk go in and enter the holiday for you guys. So I'm assuming that they will probably do that again, although I will confirm that. And because the system knows that it's a holiday, but unfortunately it doesn't default it in. So I will talk to the help desk and see kind of what the plan is to going forward for Labor Day. But if you needed to do it, this is how you would do it. It's just another TRC code. Now, we also have times where folks, they work their shift, right? You guys, the T is pretty much never closed. So you have plenty of people who will be working on holidays. So what they are entitled to is they'll get their regular pay. You can see in this instance, this person worked 3:30 to 11:30. And then they're also entitled to additional days worth of pay. And in order to enter that, you would enter a row, enter HOL, and the 8 hours. Okay, I'm going to mute your phones again.
All guests have been unmuted.
Any questions on the phone?
I have a quick question. Lynn
Sure.
again, Lynn Garage.
Yep.
On the holiday HLN,
Yes.
You're saying that's an off list, not a scheduled day off?
So it would be if you were entitled
it says
to
the in and out, so they would have normally been working that day.
Yep.
But we're removing the in and out times because they're not working, so that would be an off list. What happens when it's a scheduled day off with a holiday?
Which is scheduled day off on a holiday. Are they entitled to the pay?
An extra day pay, yes.
An extra day pay. Yep. So you would enter the HLN on that day for them, the 8 hours.
Okay.
Yep.
So that all right. Never mind. All right. HLN. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. Any other questions? Nope. All right. So we'll move right along then.
All guests have been muted.
Okay. So we've talked through kind of the main functionality of the system. We talked through how to enter time for an employee. We talked about a couple of different scenarios. We talked about how to approve time. So the final functionality that you guys have available to you is called delegation. And delegation is wonderful because it allows for managers and approvers to delegate their time approval responsibility to someone else if they're going to be away from the office. So normally this is used for if you're going to be on vacation or maybe you're going out on medical leave for a short time. You might use delegation so that someone else can do time approval on your behalf. Delegations are date driven, and general rule of thumb is they should not exceed 6 months at a time. There's functionality in the system where if someone is going out for an extended time, kind of over 6 months, there are different ways that this can be addressed. And what I really like about delegation is it's interactive, and the system does a lot of the notifications for you so that you don't have to worry about pinging, emailing people. So to start a delegation, you go to your My Team tab, and you're going to click on the Manage Delegations link right there. What's nice about them is if today's date is within your time frame, you can actually it'll reroute any transactions that are pending for you. One thing to know though, if you go ahead and initiate a delegation and perhaps you don't go on vacation, which does happen, maybe your flight's canceled or for whatever reason you don't go, you can view your employee's time, but you can't approve it. So you do have to go in and revoke the delegation in order to get that time approval back. So you go in, like I said, and you're just going to click on that Manage Delegation link. It's going to ask you to enter a date range, and you're going to select an approver, so somebody else. It's usually maybe another supervisor in your garage. You can also delegate to your approver, your supervisor as well. Your supervisor will always have access to approve your employees if needed. But what I like about the delegation, if you are going to be out of the office, this will ensure that person gets all the email notifications that the system generates. So you select the delegated approver. What's great is the system will automatically shoot an email to that person, and it will say, so-and-so has initiated a delegation request. Please log into the system and either approve or reject it. So when they log in for the first time, or after they receive that email, they'll see on their My Delegation pagelet over here, they'll see a little 2 or they'll see something and they'll know. There'll also be a pop-up notification so that they'll know they have a delegation there. And it's going to ask them to either accept or reject it. And as soon as it's accepted or rejected, it's going to kick an email off back to the original approver, so they'll know. The one piece of information that the system does not give to the person you delegate to is your time reporter group. So your time reporter group is very important. It is on your Time and Labor WorkCenter, and this is generally the only time really where you need to know what your time reporter group is, because most of the time it's going to default. But it's good delegation courtesy to send that person the time reporter group, because what they can do is when it comes time to approve time, they can just enter your time reporter group right here in the Time and Labor WorkCenter, and it will bring up their employees. And then you just go ahead and approve time the same way that you do for your employees. Okay. 2 more slides to go, and then I am going to unmute the phones. There is an MBTA payroll help desk that is set up. Their phone number is here and their email address. So if you have questions about this presentation, if you're like me, who 10 minutes after you finish a training, you think of a whole bunch of questions, you can reach out to them and they'll be happy to address your concerns. Just a quick review of some things that we talked about this afternoon. The Commonwealth pays on a biweekly basis, but we report time on a weekly basis, Sunday through Saturday. Thursday at 5 p.m. is the Timekeeper deadline for entering time. And remember, it's a kind of a soft deadline. The system, it will still be available after that to enter time. Friday at 1 is the first approver deadline for approving time. And Sunday at 6 is the deadline for approving any Friday or Saturday time. Approvers can enter time. They can enter any time on behalf of an employee. The first paycheck issued by the Commonwealth is July 28th. And that's for the pay period July 9th through the 22nd. And if you do have any questions, I'm going to unmute the phone so we can address some questions right now. But if you have any along the way, you can email payroll@mbta.com. All right, so let me unmute the phones. I'm actually going to stop the recording first.